Hey guys, welcome to another Photoshop tutorial with PSD box. Today I will show you how to make this manipulation. This is the end result, and I only used two stock images for this, and which are this ones. This is the background and this is the girl that I used, and I already have it in a PNG format extracted from the background because I will not spend time doing that. I already shown you how to extract subjects from the background, and as some of you already know, I use the pen tool all the time, but you can use any method that you like. So I will close this. I will do all of this all over again, so I will close this document and start over. And on the website you already have the text version of this tutorial. Here is where this video will be. Anyway, so let's get started. I will start with the background. So I'll open that with Photoshop. I will change the size of this because it's too big. And this will be our background. Open the stock image of the woman and place it here on the background. But as I said, I already have it as a PNG file, so I will not spend time cutting it. So I'll just copy this and just edit, paste, and I will flip this. Press Ctrl T to load the free transform. Right click and flip horizontal and place it around here. This is the original size of the woman. I didn't change the dimensions, and I'll place it somewhere around here, a bit lower, like that, and I will name this girl. And now we can start working on this. Most of the things that we will do is work here on this girl layer, because we have to adjust the contrast and the colors so that we make her blend with the dark background here under this bridge. And after that we will work on some colors and illumination here on the background. So let's start. So if you watch the text version of this, what we have on step 1 is this: just place the girl here on the background. On step 2 we have to start making the shadows, and I used 3 kinds of shadows here. And the first one that I use is I usually cast a shadow by duplicating the layer, and go to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, and reduce lightness to 0. And that way I have this black version of the layer. And I will go to Edit, Free Transform, and flip vertical. Drag it down like that, and now use the free transform tool and press Ctrl T to load that. And I will zoom out a bit and use the distort to distort the shadow. And then you can use warp, so because you can see the lag, it's up here, and you have to bring it down here. So you can click and drag and adjust that shadow just like that, and press enter to accept the change. More or less it's not perfect, but we can refine that with warp again. Okay, and now you can also apply some Gaussian blur if you want to. I think it looks better, so I will go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian blur, and let's see, about 4 or 5 pixels. 4 pixels looks nice. And now just reduce the opacity. You can also use some of the shadows that you can see here as a guide, but I did it without watching at those shadows. I think I can reduce the opacity to about 55 or 60%. And now we have one shadow. I will change the name of this. The next kind of shadow that I made is using the brush tool. So select a soft brush, like that, and change the color to black, and change the opacity to about 50%, and the flow as well. Name this layer to soft shadow. So with this layer ready, you can start painting some shadows. And I painted the shadows here on this part of the wall, and also I casted this shadow on this part, on this side, because the light source is right here, and so if the light comes from this direction, the shadows will be casted on this direction here. So that's why I made this shadow here, and that's why I will also paint these soft shadows on this side of the girl's back. Also, because the light comes from here, this part of the body will be darker, but we will deal with that in a moment. So let's make this soft shadows first. As I said, I have the opacity and the flow at about 50%, and maybe it's even too strong. Let's reduce it to 25. So you can fine-tune this as much as you want. So as you can see, I made a stronger shadow here, and I increased the size and reduced the opacity, and now I fade it out. You can see the before and after, before and after. And also you can also paint some of those shadows here on the floor as well. Increase the opacity to about 35%. Okay, something like that. And that's the soft shadows. But we need another kind of shadow. As I said, this part of the girl's body should also be in shadow. So I will make a new layer as a clipping mask. You can press the Alt key and place the cursor between the two layers, and you can see the icon changes, and that allows you to make a clipping mask. And I will name this body shadows. And again, use this soft brush and reduce the opacity a bit more to about 20%, and just start painting. So you have to paint these shadows on the part that is closer to the wall is darker, and you can see that on the text tutorial I painted that with green here, so that you can see more or less where I painted those shadows. And also on the lower part of the leg, and here on the shoes as well. So the objective is to make this part of the body a bit darker. Notice that I'm not painting over these highlights here, just here on this part of the arm, and right here, and here on the hair a bit. Increase the brush size if you want to have a smoother transition. So something like that. Don't paint too much, so you can see the change. You're almost like shifting the light, because now we have this darker part here and this part here is the same. So as you can see, you can also paint on the face if you want, but if you're not too good at that, you can leave it like that. There's no problem. So now that I have everything set up, I can start making adjustments. And I started with color adjustments first, and I used color balance. You can use selective color if you want, and I will use this as a clipping mask as well. And my objective here is to get to make the image, to add some more cyan and blue, and get rid of this yellow cast. So I will increase the cyan and the blue, and maybe some magenta here. And on the shadows, just do the same, and maybe add a bit of green, not too much. Okay, something like that. So let's see before and after. You can see that now the girl blends a lot better with the colors of the surrounding area. It's a lot better than this. And another color adjustment that I did is using a gradient map, and I used some blue colors and some magenta, like that. Click OK, and make sure you're using this as a clipping mask. Set this to soft light and just reduce the opacity until you see it looks good to you. And this is how it looks. So I will disable these two adjustment layers so that you can see the before and after. So now we are on step 3C, and we have to add the curves adjustment layer, also as a clipping mask, and that's just to make the girl even darker, something like that. That looks okay. Okay, after making all these adjustments, let's continue with dodging and burning, and I will use my action. As always, I have a video of how I make this layer. It's basically create a new layer, fill it with 50% gray, and set it on overlay. But as you saw just a moment ago, I have an action for that, and I already made a video of how I made it, that action. So if you want to learn that, just go on YouTube or on my website and search for that video. So I will start with the burn tool, and I use exposure of about 12 or 13% and the range to midtones, and I will zoom in and start burning. Now the light is coming from the city lights here, so we have to leave this part of the body illuminated, and you can see that the shoe here has this highlight here, and it's darker on this side. So we have to keep that. Also see here on the arms. So we have to try and keep that. So I will burn this part of the body, and I will make the highlights on this part here. You will see in a second. So let's go with the burn tool first. It's too strong, the opacity. The exposure, I need to set it to 12 or 13%, as I said, and just make multiple passes. Try to keep all the original highlights. So as you can see, I'm not burning these highlights here. Make a smaller brush and just go over the shadows. If you're new to this technique, you need a bit of practice, but I use it almost every time when I make manipulations. I find it very useful. But if you don't want to use it, it's up to you. I like the result that I get. So as you can see, I'm going over all these shadows here, keeping these highlights, keeping the tool away from the highlights. I don't want to burn the highlights. Also here, oops, on the face. Okay, now let's go with the dodge tool. Again, set the exposure to about 12 or 13% and do the same but on the highlights now. Notice that I have this layer on clipping as a clipping mask, so I'm not worrying about going over the edge. Let's go with the highlights here on the arms. Maybe I could increase the exposure just a bit. Okay, I think you've already got the idea. I would probably spend a bit more time going over more details, but anyway, let's see the before and after. So before and after. You can duplicate this layer if you want to and get a stronger effect, and just then drop the opacity a bit. Okay, now let's go with the strong highlights. You have two options here. You can create a new layer like this one, filled with 50% gray, and then use the dodge tool, but with a much higher exposure. Or you can another method of doing that is just creating a new layer and set the blend mode to color dodge. I think I named this rim lights or something like that, and just get the brush tool and set hardness to 0 and decrease the size to a few pixels. The diameter of the brush depends on the size of your canvas, but you want something like 5 pixels for this canvas size. And then use the grayscale, and what you can do is set a light gray color and set the opacity of the brush to about 50% and the flow as well, and just start painting. Let's see if it's too strong. Yeah, it's a bit too strong. Let's go with a darker gray and just start painting. It's still too strong, so you adjust the strength of the effect by using a darker or a lighter tone of gray. Maybe with the dodging and burning layer it's easier, so well, I'll do both so that you can see how you can do it. I will probably like the other method better. So just paint the highlights like that, but let's use the other technique because it's easier. So let's go and create a new layer, give it the same name, and go to Edit, Fill, 50% gray. Make sure you uncheck Preserve Transparency and click OK. And now set the blend mode to overlay. And get the dodge tool and set the exposure to about 30%. Protect tones in this case is not affecting us, so you can check it or uncheck it, it's up to you. The size of the brush that I'm using is 4 or 5 pixels, and make sure you have the dodge tool selected, not the brush tool, and just start dodging. You can make this as a clipping mask as well, because we will only make these lights on the edges of the girl's body. And the reason why I set the exposure to 30% is because I want a low exposure, and that way I can make several passes and build up the intensity of the light, but it's too low, so let me set it to 40% and maybe increase the brush size. On the original artwork I made these lights using the brush tool. You can do it that way as well, but I think this technique is a bit easier. And it's a lot easier to do it if you have a tablet, but right now I'm doing it with the mouse. On the original I made it with the tablet, but as you can see it's not really that difficult to make with the mouse. Just make several passes to build up the intensity of the light. And in photography this is called rim light, and actually if you go to Google and just search for that, you will see this is the kind of light that we're building. See this highlights here, this ones here you can see it a lot better, and also here on the shoulders. This is the kind of lights that we are trying to create here. You can see that in a lot of good manipulations, they really make the image stand out a lot better. And I only recently started to make this kind of lights, and I saw that they are really nice. But you need to know more or less how the light works and to think in 3D and know where the light source is and that kind of things. But with a bit of practice you will get it. It's not that difficult. So let's make some highlights here on this part of the shoe and the leg here. Adjust your brush size whenever you need. So it's as easy as painting a few highlights on the contour. And let's see the result, so before and after. And if you want an even stronger effect, just duplicate the layer like you did before and decrease the opacity a bit. And there you go. I see too many highlights here on the face, so I will paint with 50% gray with the brush tool to get rid of that. Okay, that's better. So we're pretty much done with that. Now let's make a few adjustments to the general image. Now you can also use another dodging and burning layer for the bridge, but that's up to you again. I just wanted to increase the highlights here on the top part of the bridge, and I'm using a 40% exposure. And you can go over details, of course, like these highlights here on the, just like that. You can take your time and just go over all the details, and the more time you spend on details, the better the final result will be. I can assure you that. Also increase the highlights on this bricks here. Can even increase the exposure if you need to. And right now I'm just using the dodge tool. Okay. Let's see before and after. It just adds a bit more light. And of course you can also use the burn tool. on certain areas if you want to. This is just you can do this however you want. It's just your taste. Too strong. Let's use lower exposure. Okay, so you can see it's a pretty significant change before and after. So that was step 6. You can see the dodging and burning over the image. And on step 7 I started adding these lights here to enhance the colors and all that. You can see the values here that I used. So create a new layer, which I will name colors. You can do it on several layers if you want to, but I will paint all the colors on a single layer. Set the blend mode to color dodge and just use some colors from the palette. I tried to use the same colors as on the original background, so something like that. Just don't, if you see the effect is too strong like this, use a darker tone of the same color and try again, something like that. And then use, you can even sample from the image if you want to. And then just, you see it's too strong, still too strong. Okay, something like that. Then once you get the right tone, you can leave you can leave it there and just navigate from here and change the hue and try that. Some colors on the top of the bridge here, and then some orange here. And let's add a bit of cyan. Okay, so that's how I added those colors. I can see I have a too strong effect here on the face, so I'll use the eraser with the low opacity and just get rid of some of this color. Okay, so let's say before and after again. So without the colors and with the colors, you can see that it also adds a bit of light because we are using this color dodge blend mode. So once you have these colors here, you can start making the final adjustments, and I use gradient maps for that. And I use this one first and set it to color dodge and reduce the opacity to about 20%, and then use another gradient map, which is this one, again set to color dodge, and the opacity again to about 20 or 15%. Let's go with 15 and see how it looks. This one is too strong. This one adds a bit more of color, as you can see. I don't really like the highlights here on the face, and let's see why is that. You can get rid of that with the brush tool and paint with 50% gray. On the dodge and burn layers. And once you have the adjustment layers, create a stamp by pressing Shift, Control, Alt and E. Or another way of doing that is select all the canvas with Control A, or from Select All, and go to Edit, Copy Merged, and then go to Edit, Paste, and you get the same result. And I will name this stamp. I will turn it into a smart object because I will apply a filter. It's not necessary to turn it into a smart object, especially if you don't have the Photoshop version that allows you to do that, but I always do that. And go to filter, render, lighting effect, and this is just to add the final touch to the image. And I usually use an intensity of about 13 or 14 depending on the image, but I found that those values usually work well for me, so I'll type 14. And let's see the focus. I want to focus the light somewhere here, and so you get that fading effect of the light, so on the corners will be a bit darker. You can also control the contrast here, so I'll set it more metallic. And let's see, with the shine and the gloss. You cannot see the result really well here on this thumbnail. That's why I turned this into a smart object, because now if I apply this, if I don't like the result, this is converted into a smart filter, so I can double click and make the adjustments that I need to without having to start over again. So I will decrease the ambience and increase the exposure. Click OK. And so this is the before and after. It's too strong, the light, so I'll reduce this to 13 and click OK. And I like it more. So that's how I made the thing called love manipulation. I hope you liked the tutorial, and if you have any questions or suggestions, you just post a comment on my website or on YouTube, and I'll try to help you if I can. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.